The music is too loud to sound real. It thunders through crystal and laughter through fake compliments and clinking glasses. Every smile in this room feels polished sharp enough to draw blood. I stand near the edge of the crowd, a spectator in heels too tight, watching my husband hold up his glass. He's next to his boss Alicia. Her lipstick matches his tie. The same deep red I used to wear when I still believed in celebration. Everyone cheers as she thanks the man who made her believe in late nights and impossible goals. The room erupts. Applause, flashbulbs. His hand rests on her lower back. Too long, too familiar. And when he leans close to whisper something that makes her laugh, that's when I realize it isn't the volume of the music that's making me dizzy. It's the humiliation. I lift my champagne glass to my lips because doing nothing would make me visible. I hold the smile, the posture, the illusion of grace. The bubbles fizz against my skin, cold, metallic. She raises her glass toward me across the room, a gesture that looks like inclusion but feels like mockery. "Come on up, Mrs. Ellis," someone calls, meaning it as a joke. The crowd chuckles. My husband turns too slow, pretending not to hear. I nod as if I'm flattered. I lift my glass again, a silent private toast. My hand trembles once, a betrayal only I can feel. In that instant, I decide to stop waiting for him to choose me. The music surges again, something poppy triumphant. He claps the loudest for her speech. She talks about leadership, gratitude, the team that believed in her. Each word feels like a needle. I focus on the condensation sliding down my glass, watching it trail toward my fingers. My reflection warps in the surface, two faces blending, hers and mine. One smiling, one breaking. A co-worker leans close. "You okay?" she whispers. I smile. Of course, why wouldn't I be? It's not a question. It's armor. Across the room, the photographer snaps another photo of them together, the flash freezing their closeness forever. She leans into him again. My husband doesn't move away. The applause begins again, a standing ovation. The sound folds over me like a heavy coat. I feel invisible and on fire all at once. I keep clapping, louder, longer. Because in humiliation, there's a strange kind of clarity. When you have nothing left to lose, you start noticing what's still yours. When the crowd disperses, I move toward the balcony. The city hums below, taxis horns, endless motion. I breathe in the night air, sharp and cold, the kind that makes you want to start over. Behind me, through the glass doors, he laughs again. That laugh used to make me feel safe. Now it sounds like a warning. Alicia joins him. Her hand grazes his wrist. He doesn't flinch. I whisper under my breath, "Watch me." He doesn't hear it. No one does. But I feel it settle inside me like a promise. When the waiter approaches to refill my glass, I cover the rim with my hand. "No thank you." He nods, moves on. The party lights flicker gold across the skyline. From this height, the city looks like a constellation of possibilities, cold, distant, but reachable. I take out my phone. The home screen still shows our wedding photo, me in white, him in a suit, that same proud smile. I swipe it away, open the Notes app and type one line, phase 1, begin quietly. I place the phone beside the glass, both reflecting the same thing, my face steady and expressionless. Inside the ballroom, she raises her voice for one last toast. To partnerships, she says, her smile slicing the air. He raises his glass to meet hers. I watch them from the glass reflection. They're perfectly framed, the power couple, the lie everyone claps for. The applause starts again, louder this time. No one notices the woman outside on the balcony, hands folded, eyes dry, heart cooling into something else. When I finally step away from the window, I leave the glass behind on the railing, half full, bubbles fading, lipstick smudge catching the light. The wind catches my hair as I walk toward the elevator. The music fades. The applause dies. But in my head, I can still hear the clinking of glasses, the sound of endings. At home, he's already asleep when I arrive. His phone is on the nightstand, still glowing faintly. A message preview lights the screen. "Love tonight." Can't believe it's finally official. Her name flashes above it. I don't read the rest. I just stand there staring at the phone until the glow fades to black. Then I walk to the window, set down my purse and place the same champagne glass from the party beside it. The city reflects in both surfaces, fractured, glittering, alive. He thinks I'll cry. He thinks I'll crumble. He thinks this is the end. He's wrong. This isn't the end. This is the investment. The next morning, the city feels too clean. Sunlight slides across the blinds, dissecting my bedroom into stripes. Light, dark, the same rhythm as my breathing. He's in the kitchen, humming to the sound of the coffee maker. Same routine, same pretense. I watch him pour 2 mugs. The second one, mine, still has a lipstick stain from last night. He doesn't notice. Or maybe he does and doesn't care. He's scrolling through his phone while talking about nothing: parking tickets, deadlines, a coworker's new car. I nod in the right places, mouth the right sounds. Inside, everything is static. The aftertaste of champagne still lingers, metallic, bitter. The kind of taste that reminds you not to drink from the same glass twice. He looks up suddenly. You were quiet last night. Long day, I say. He studies my face. His eyes flicker with a kind of guilt that's learned how to hide itself. You looked beautiful, he says. Thank you. It's the same script, different cast. He's performing remorse, I'm performing indifference. When he leaves, I stand at the window holding my coffee mug like an anchor. The city moves below, people walking fast, no one pausing long enough to drown. I envy that. There was a time when I measured love by how many late nights we survived together. Now I measure it by silence. The longer I can go without speaking to him, the more I can think clearly. At work, I return to the same fluorescent light and corporate perfume. The office buzzes with celebration. Her name, Alicia, is on every email subject line. I delete each one. Her congratulations card sits on my desk. I open it anyway. Inside, thank you for being such a supportive partner. The handwriting is perfect, looping, confident. The word supportive is underlined. I fold the card once, then again, until it's small enough to fit in my palm. I drop it in the trash with surgical precision. Throughout the day, people watch me with that uncomfortable sympathy reserved for women who don't know yet, except I do. I've known since before the lipstick, before the whispers. They just think I'm too weak to leave. They don't realize I've already left, just not physically. At lunch, I sit alone in the courtyard. I open my phone and search how to register a business anonymously. Small business grants for women entrepreneurs. Confidential exit strategy. The words look cold on the screen, but they feel warm in my chest. A plan is the purest form of self-respect. That night he comes home late, his tie is gone, his voice smells like laughter that doesn't include me. He says, "We got the contract." I say, "Congratulations." He kisses my cheek, and I wonder if she knows he still does that out of habit. While he showers, I open my laptop and start creating an Excel sheet. At first, it's just names, clients, vendors, contacts, friends who owe me favors. Then I add a second column, leverage. Third column, weakness. It's not revenge yet, it's inventory. My hands move automatically, numbers and names falling into order. The rhythm of typing replaces the heartbeat I've been trying to control all day. From the bathroom, I hear him humming the same song they played at the party. I pause. My finger hovers over the delete key, but I don't press it. I add one more column instead. Timeline. When he steps out, towel around his neck, he asks, "You're still working?" I smile faintly. "Just catching up." He nods, oblivious. In that moment, I realize how easy it is to hide in plain sight. He turns off the light. I keep my laptop open, the glow soft against my face. Row by row, I start constructing my exit. Weeks pass this way, me playing wife by day and architect by night. Every "I love you" he offers becomes a background hum I stop hearing. Every lie he tells adds another formula to my sheet. My silence becomes structure, my stillness becomes blueprint. One evening while he's watching TV, I receive an email from a recruiter. "Your proposal looks strong. Let's discuss funding." My pulse stutters once, not with fear, but recognition. This is what power feels like before it has a name. I close the laptop and look toward the coffee doll. His phone lights up. A new message. Her name again. "Miss you already." I don't look away this time. I just let the glow of the screen fill the room. Then I whisper something so softly that even I barely hear it. "Good. Keep missing me." When he finally falls asleep, I walk to the kitchen. The champagne glass from that night sits near the sink, still stained, still untouched. I wash it carefully, not to reuse it, but to see the lipstick swirl down the drain. The glass gleams clean under the light, empty, waiting. I place it back on the shelf upside down. No more toasts. No more aftertaste, only work, only silence, and as I shut off the light, I realize I don't feel sad anymore. I feel efficient. The following weeks blur into a polite kind of erasure. No one stops talking when I walk into a room anymore, they just lower their voices. It's not hostility. It's worse than that. It's pity. They treat me like a ghost still doing her old job because she hasn't realized she's dead yet. At the Monday meeting, Alicia takes my usual seat. She doesn't ask, she just sits. Crosses her legs, opens her laptop and smiles. "Hope everyone had a great weekend," she says brightly, as if she didn't spend hers with my husband. The others laugh too loudly. The men look down at their notes, and I sit 2 chairs away taking minutes like an assistant. When she presents my proposal as her own, my husband nods proud. He doesn't even glance at me. I feel the heat rising to my face, but I keep my voice calm. Excellent presentation, Alicia, I say. You'll want to double-check Section 3. The supplier costs are outdated. Her smile wavers for a fraction of a second. She knows I know. After the meeting, he pulls me aside. Was that necessary? I was just helping, I reply. He sighs. She's under pressure. Don't make this harder than it needs to be. The word harder sticks. Harder for who? Her, him. He walks away before I can answer. By noon, the whispers start again. She's still here. I'd have left by now. They mean it as advice, but I take it as a challenge. I stay. I study. I notice how Alicia's assistant types her passwords without looking, how the finance director drinks too much at company lunches, how the senior partners gossip through private Slack channels they think are hidden. I start keeping records. Dates, numbers, favors owed, small hypocrisies, not because I plan to expose them, but because information is the purest form of leverage. At home, he complains about stress. She's demanding. I don't even get weekends anymore. I nod, pretend to care. My empathy has become a script I read from memory. Inside, I'm already gone detached enough to observe both of us like characters in a story that's overstayed its ending. One evening, as I'm finishing a report, Alicia stops by my desk. She leans in, perfume sweet and heavy. You're so composed, she says. I'd never handle things this gracefully. The compliment is almost kind, almost cruel. I smile. It's all about pacing. Her eyes flicker a moment of confusion before she walks away. That night, I replay the conversation in my head. Grace, composure, pacing. She thinks I'm surviving. She doesn't see that I'm planning. I spend my evenings researching LLC filings, consulting firms' intellectual property clauses. The legal language becomes music, cold, precise, impersonal. I start sketching ideas in a notebook, services, clients, projected growth. At the top of the first page, I write structure built on silence. He notices my late nights but misreads them. Still working, he says. Something like that. He kisses the top of my head out of habit, not affection. The gesture lands like dust. At work, the company starts reshuffling teams. Alicia gets a private office. I get moved to a smaller cubicle near the copier. It's poetic, really, the machine that repeats other people's work. At lunch, a junior analyst sits beside me. I don't know how you do it, she whispers. Do what? Stay so calm. If it were me, I'd lose it. I smile. That's the difference. You'd lose it. I'm saving it. She laughs, thinking I'm joking, but I mean every word. Later that week, HR sends an anonymous survey about workplace satisfaction. I fill mine out, honestly, no rage, no names, just data points. Under suggestions, I write, develop stronger ethics in leadership succession. They'll never trace it. They'll never understand it's a warning. At night, I sit by the window again. The champagne glass still glints on the shelf upside down. I've stopped associating it with pain. Now it's a symbol, a reminder that silence can sparkle too, if you know how to hold it. Sometimes I imagine the future like a chessboard. Each piece moves slowly, deliberately. I'm the queen no one notices until it's too late. I start small, a domain name, a logo, a business registration. I pay for everything in cash. I don't tell anyone. The next morning, I arrive at work and find a new memo: Alicia promoted to Senior VP of Operations. My husband's name appears below hers, executive liaison. Titles that sound impressive but mean dependence. I stare at the paper for a long time, then pin it neatly to the corkboard beside my monitor. Another reminder of what power looks like before it breaks. In the reflection of my screen, I see my own eyes. Steady, focused, unflinching, invisible but awake. By the time everyone leaves for after-work drinks, I'm still at my desk. Alicia walks past me, perfume trailing like a flag of victory. Don't stay too late, she says, smiling. I don't look up. Wouldn't dream of it, I murmur. When she's gone, I open my laptop and start transferring files. Client lists, contact sheets, old presentations, all rewritten, renamed, stripped of identifiers. Not theft, just reclamation. As I leave the office, I catch my reflection in the elevator doors, unreadable, framed by fluorescent light. The doors close softly, sealing me inside, the sound of my own breathing. And for the first time in weeks, I feel something close to peace, because I finally understand. They can't erase what they can't see coming. It's 3:17 a.m. when I start sketching the first version of the blueprint. The apartment is quiet except for the low hum of the refrigerator and the faint buzz of my laptop. He's asleep in the next room. I can hear the rhythm of his breathing, steady, confident, completely unaware that something irreversible has begun. On the table beside me, my notebook lies open. The first page reads, Structure built on silence. Below it, columns of names, vendors, clients, and notes that look harmless until you see the pattern. Every contact I've ever met through him, every vendor she bragged about bringing in, I've studied them. Not for revenge, not yet. For architecture, a system of leverage stitched together from the scraps they've overlooked. By the 5th page, the lines start forming shapes, arrows connecting opportunities. At the center of it all, I draw a small circle, my name, Monica Ellis. Then another larger one around it, the empire she'll never see coming. I stare at it for a long time before whispering to the empty room, "Let's begin." The next day, I walk into work carrying 2 bags, one for my corporate identity and one for my escape plan. The office smells like burnt coffee and ambition. Alicia's laugh cuts through the hallway before I even see her. She's showing off her new office to a client, sunlight streaming over the words VP of Operations engraved on her door. My husband trails behind, attentive, eager, the kind of man who confuses proximity with power. She catches my eye and smiles. "Monica, could you bring us the Q3 numbers?" Her voice is syrupy sweet, a performance. Of course, I reply and head to my desk. But what I bring her isn't the full report, it's the version with gaps subtle enough to confuse, precise enough to expose weakness. I hand it to her, smiling. "Let me know if you need clarification." She thanks me, distracted. Later that day, I hear her fumbling through a call, misquoting data she doesn't understand. The client's patience thins. Her tone cracks. My husband rushes in to save her. They're unraveling, not visibly, not yet, but it's there. The first hairline fracture in their glass tower. At home, I start buying domain names, small, untraceable, inexpensive. I register one under an old family trust, elliscollaborative.com. It sounds harmless, almost corporate, but it's mine. I start sending quiet feelers through LinkedIn, old colleagues, vendors I treated well, women who left because the company culture wasn't for them. One by one, they respond. They remember. I don't promise anything yet, I just ask questions. What would you need to come back? What do you wish leadership understood? Their answers become data points and my data becomes a plan. At 3 a.m. again, I refine it. The notebook grows thicker. I start labeling sections. Strategy, funding, exit timeline. Each word feels like oxygen. Weeks blur into months. At work, I remain the model employee, quiet, reliable, invisible. No one notices that I've stopped contributing ideas in meetings. I just listen, record, file away everything useful. Every Friday, I back up a new batch of data to an encrypted drive. Every Sunday, I meet a mentor, a woman named Renee, retired, sharp, unflinchingly honest. She used to run her own firm until the board forced her out. I know that look, she says the first night we meet. "You're not angry, you're awake." I nod. "I don't want to destroy them." She smirks. "Of course not. You want to replace them. That's much cleaner." Under her guidance, I learn how to read contracts like confessionals, how to spot the soft belly in a company's armor. And every time I find one, I write it down. By page 40, my notes aren't just plans, they're prophecy. Then one evening, Alicia calls me into her office. She's alone, her desk messy, a sign she's slipping. "Monica," she says, "I've noticed you've been distant. I've had a lot on my plate. You're good at your job," she continues, "but if you want to move up, you have to integrate, be part of the team." The word integrate makes me want to laugh. She means submit. I nod. "I'll think about it." She beams, relieved, mistaking compliance for defeat. As I leave, my husband passes me in the hall. He touches my arm briefly, a reflex he doesn't deserve. "You okay?" he asks. "I'm great," I say. "Really great." And I mean it. At home that night, I pour myself a glass of water and hold it up against the light. The condensation slides down the side like tears that never made it out. For a moment, I imagine it's champagne, cold, golden, arrogant. Then I drink it slowly, deliberately. I open my notebook and write a single line across a clean page. He doesn't know I'm already gone. By the end of that month, I have everything I need. A skeleton crew of 3 women, a rented office, a pitch deck that looks like it's been touched by grace. My savings account is nearly empty. But I've never felt wealthier. At 4:11 a.m., I hit send on my first investor email. The subject line, "A cleaner way to build." It's short, professional, and cold, just like me now. I lean back close my laptop and stare out the window. The city is still awake, lights blinking in and out like quiet applause. For the first time in months, I smile without forcing it, because I know something they don't. Revenge isn't loud, it's architectural. They start to notice something is off before they even know what it is. Whispers pass through the office corridors like drafts of cold air. Alicia missed a deadline. The client called twice. The projections don't add up. The same people who once avoided eye contact with me now hover near my cubicle, polite, uncertain. They think I might still care about fixing things. They're half right. On a Thursday morning, Alicia bursts out of her office, voice sharp. Who changed the vendor list? No one answers. Her assistant looks at me instinctively, guilt reflex. Alicia follows her gaze. Monica, she says. I meet her eyes calm as glass. No, but I can help you find out who did. The lie slides off my tongue like silk. Because technically it's true, I didn't change it. I just made sure someone else did. She nods quickly, relief flooding her face. Thank you. I appreciate your professionalism. That word again. Professionalism. The corporate synonym for submission. I return to my desk and continue typing, the corner of my mouth tightening into something almost like a smile. By late afternoon, she's pacing in her office, shouting into her phone. I can hear every word. The client threatens to pull funding. She blames her team. Her voice cracks on the phrase, I'll fix it. I make a note of the time. At 4:36 p.m., her empire takes its first public dent. When my husband walks by my desk, his expression is tight. Rough day, he mutters. Seems like it, I say. He leans closer. You've been quiet lately. Quiet is efficient. He hesitates. Alicia's under pressure. Maybe ease up on the corrections for now. There it is, the reflex to protect her even from me. I look at him for a long moment until the silence between us feels like truth. I'll keep that in mind, I say. Then I turn back to my screen. That night I open a bottle of champagne, not to celebrate but to study it. The bubbles rise, slow, methodical, obedient. I pour one glass, just enough to see the fizz reach the rim. It looks exactly like the one from her promotion night. I place it beside my laptop and open a spreadsheet titled Reallocation Plan. Column A, clients that trust her. Column B, clients that trust me more. Column C, those who don't yet know they should. By the time I finish sorting, the glass has gone flat. The bubbles die quietly, like the illusion of permanence. I leave it there, a trophy of patience. A week later, HR calls a confidential meeting. Alicia's department is under review. There are discrepancies in the numbers, small enough to question, big enough to alarm investors. They ask if I've noticed anything unusual. I tilt my head slightly. Only that some of her files were shared on the wrong drive. Might be a permissions issue. The man from HR nods gravely, typing fast. You did the right thing reporting it. I almost laugh. When the meeting ends, I walk past Alicia's office. She's on a call, tears sharp in her voice. My husband sits beside her, rubbing her shoulder. I tap the door lightly. Everything okay? She looks up, eyes glossy. It's just a misunderstanding. I'm sure it is. Then softly, do you want me to draft a statement? She nods, grateful. Thank you. That night I write it for her, crisp, professional, sterile. But one sentence carries a seed she won't notice until it blooms. Ms. Alvarez acknowledges that certain managerial oversights contributed to temporary inconsistencies. Not errors, not malice, oversights. That one word is enough to make investors nervous. When I send the final draft, I pour another glass of champagne, not to drink but to watch. The bubbles climb upward like a quiet kind of applause. He comes home late again. His tie is gone, eyes tired. Rough week, he says, collapsing on the couch. Something like that, I reply. He looks at me then as if trying to remember who I am. You don't ask about her anymore. I'm giving her the space she deserves. He doesn't catch the tone. He just nods, relieved. When he goes to bed, I open my notebook and draw a small diagonal line through Alicia's name. Not a cross-out, a strike mark, not done but close. 2 weeks later, the office announces organizational restructuring. Alicia's team is merged under another VP. My husband's title changes from executive liaison to strategic advisor, the kind of title that means nothing and pays less. He doesn't mention it at home. I find out through the internal memo. At the staff meeting, she's composed but pale. Her eyes dart toward me once, maybe searching for sympathy, maybe for weakness. I offer neither. When the applause comes polite and shallow, she tries to smile. I clap, too slow, deliberate, each sound a reminder of who taught who how to perform, grace under pressure. That evening, I stay late at the office, waiting until the lights in her new cubicle dim and the building empties. Then I walk to the glass window overlooking the city. The reflection stares back, calm, older, sharper. In the darkened glass, my eyes look like someone else's. I whisper, almost. Back at my desk, I pick up the half-empty champagne glass I'd brought to mark the day. I tilt it slightly, letting the flat fizz roll to one side. It's not celebration. It's confirmation. They're starting to fracture, and I'm finally beginning to shine through. I wake before dawn, not from noise but from stillness. There's a strange kind of peace in knowing exactly what you'll do next. The city outside my window looks washed clean, the kind of pale gray that makes everything look possible again. I slip out of bed quietly, careful not to wake him. His breathing is deep and bothered, like a man who's never considered that peace might have an expiration date. At the kitchen counter, I make coffee and open my laptop. The resignation letter is already drafted, a single paragraph of restraint. Effective immediately, I am tendering my resignation. I appreciate the opportunities and wish the company continued success. It sounds polite, innocent, it's neither. I print it out, fold it into thirds, and slip it into my purse alongside my ID badge. The badge catches the light as I close the bag, the same light that once felt like belonging. Now it just looks like reflection. When I arrive at the office, no one greets me. The energy has shifted. Alicia's door is half shut. I hear muffled voices inside. Her laugh, that sharp rehearsed sound, is gone. I pause at my cubicle, running my fingertips across the desk one last time. My space smells faintly of paper and perfume, the residue of someone who used to wait for permission. Not anymore. At 9:02 a.m., I send one email. Please see attached. The resignation letter is the attachment. No message, no explanation. I turn off my monitor, gather my purse, and stand. It's strange how finality can feel weightless. Alicia emerges just as I'm heading for the elevator. Her eyes widen when she sees me holding the envelope. Leaving early, I smile. Something like that. She frowns, uncertain, as if the room itself is shifting around her. You're serious. Completely. My husband appears behind her, papers in hand, confusion flickering across his face. Monica, he says, as if saying my name could stop me. I hand him my badge. For you, I say. A keepsake. He opens his mouth to speak, but I'm already stepping into the elevator. The doors slide closed. The last thing I see is his expression, part shock, part fear. The dawning realization that I'm no longer orbiting his world. The elevator hums softly. My reflection shimmers on the mirrored doors. For the first time in years, I see only one person in that reflection, me. When I reach the lobby, I pause by the security desk. The guard who's seen me every morning for 7 years nods. Big day, the biggest, I say. Outside, the air smells different, alive. Unfiltered. Freedom, it turns out, has a temperature. I walk 2 blocks to a small cafe where I've scheduled my first meeting of the day. Renee is already there, sipping tea. When she sees me, her smile is sharp and knowing. So, you finally cut the cord. I didn't cut it, I say, setting my bag down. I rewired it. We talk about logistics, contracts, partnerships, investor calls. But underneath every sentence is a hum of something deeper, vindication. Not the cheap kind that shouts, the kind that breathes. At the end of our meeting, she leans forward. You ready? I've been ready. Then don't look back. I don't. Not when I sign the lease for a small office space 3 blocks from the company that underestimated me. Not when I hang the new key on a lanyard that feels like a medal. Not even when my husband calls that night. He leaves a voicemail I don't need to hear to know its tone, confused, self-justifying, afraid. The kind of man who only understands love as something he can manage. I place my phone face down on the table. In the quiet, I pour myself one last drink, not champagne this time, but water, cold, clean, without illusion. I hold the glass up to the light. It glows faintly as if the universe has granted permission. When I take a sip, it tastes like nothing, pure neutrality. That's when I realize peace has no flavor. It's not sweet or bitter, it's just steady. The next morning, I send one more email. Not to him, not to Alicia, to the investor who'd been watching my progress from afar. The deck is ready, I'm free to move forward. Her reply comes within minutes. Let's talk today. The speed of her response feels like a second kind of applause. I close my laptop and stand by the window. The sun is sharp, washing the city in a pale glow that feels almost new. In the reflection, I see myself holding the glass of water upright, clear, unbroken. I whisper, reallocation complete, because that's what leaving really is, not abandonment, reallocation of dignity, of power, of self. 2 weeks later, they announce her sabbatical. No one says why. My husband doesn't mention it when he calls again. I don't answer. Instead, I open the notebook and write a new title across the top of the next page: expansion. I let the words sit there clean and alone until it looks like prophecy. Then I close the book, pour another glass of water, and smile. It's not celebration, it's confirmation. The first phase of my freedom is complete. The first year after I left was quieter than I imagined. Not peaceful, not yet, just empty in a way that felt honest. No gossip, no calendar invites, no urgent pings from people who never cared about my name. Just the low hum of fluorescent light in a rented co-working space that smelled faintly of dust and ambition. I sat by the window most days, laptop open, a blank document staring back at me like a dare. Renee told me not to expect fireworks. Real building is slow, she said. People think silence means failure. They forget silence is the sound of growth. So I learned to love the quiet. The soft clack of my keyboard became my new applause. The company started small, just me and 3 women who knew what it meant to be overlooked. Nora handled contracts sharp as a scalpel. Imani could find a loophole in any regulation, and Joy, her name was ironic, had the kind of laugh that made exhaustion bearable. We met in coffee shops and cheap rented boardrooms, surviving on caffeine and conviction. Sometimes we argued about fonts, sometimes about strategy, but every night when we left, I could feel something forming. A pulse, a direction. We didn't need noise, we had intent. Meanwhile, I watched from afar as my old company began to flounder. Alicia's sabbatical turned into an indefinite leave. Investors started whispering about leadership instability. My husband, ex-husband, really, though we hadn't signed the papers yet, had been quietly moved to consultant, a polite exile. He posted motivational quotes on LinkedIn. He tagged her once, no likes. I should have felt triumphant, but mostly I felt still. I didn't need their failure. I needed my foundation. By midsummer, we had our first real client, an independent brand that wanted to reimagine corporate ethics. The irony almost made me laugh. During the pitch, I found myself speaking with a calm I didn't know I possessed. I wasn't proving anything, I was presenting facts. When the client said yes, I didn't jump or cry or shout, I just nodded as if the world had finally caught up to a truth I'd already accepted. That night, we celebrated with takeout and paper cups of cheap champagne. Nora raised hers and said, "To quiet women doing loud things." I didn't drink mine. I just held it, watching the bubbles rise and die. Some victories don't need to be swallowed. As the months passed, we grew faster than I'd planned. Word spread through quiet networks, the kind built on whispers and shared experience. We became known not for flash but for precision. Clients started coming to us because they trusted we wouldn't talk, wouldn't posture, wouldn't lie. One morning, I checked our balance sheet and realized we'd cleared our first $1 million in contracts. I expected euphoria. Instead, I felt a strange calm, like a tide turning beneath the surface. Success, it turns out, doesn't shout, it hums. Sometimes late at night, I'd find myself staring out the window again. The skyline looked different from this angle, closer, less intimidating. The glass towers that used to represent exclusion now looked like mirrors reflecting what I'd built in their shadow. I'd catch my reflection faintly overlaying the city lights, older, steadier, wearing no mask. And I'd think, this is what visibility feels like when you stop asking for permission. One night, Joy fell asleep on the office couch after a long client call. Her laptop was still open, screensaver dancing. I draped my jacket over her shoulders and turned off the lights. In the soft glow from the window, our tiny office looked like something holy. The kind of holiness built from exhaustion and purpose. Renee called me the next morning. "Remember the night you left?" she asked. How could I forget? "You didn't just leave a company, Monica, you left an orbit." That sentence stayed with me, because that's exactly what it felt like, escaping gravity. Autumn arrived. We expanded to a proper office, a floor with real windows, real chairs, and our name etched into the glass, Ellis Collaborative. I ran my fingers over the letters. They felt solid, earned. When the sign installer asked what color I wanted for the logo, I said, "Frosted silver." He smiled. "Cold but elegant, exactly. Cold isn't cruelty. It's control." The first time I saw Alicia's name in the industry news again, it was buried in a minor scandal, executive mismanagement, misuse of funds pending review. My husband's name wasn't mentioned. That was almost kinder. I closed the tab and went back to work, because the story was never about them. It was about what I became when they stopped seeing me. At the end of that year, I hosted a small dinner for my team. Just the 4 of us in a rented loft with too many candles and too little food. They toasted me, laughing, crying, alive. I lifted my glass but didn't drink. Instead, I said, "To the year of quiet." They didn't understand at first. But one by one they nodded, because silence had saved us. It had built something no applause ever could. After everyone left, I stood alone by the window. The city glittered below, the same skyline that once watched me crumble. I could almost hear the echo of that first night, the clinking glass, the hollow applause. But now the sound belonged to me. I turned off the lights, the room bathed in moonlight, and whispered, "Phase 2, complete." Then softly, as the city breathed back, "Let's make some noise." It started with a message I almost ignored. Subject line, "Your work speaks louder than you think." The sender's name stopped me, Victoria Lane, one of those names whispered in conference rooms and magazine profiles. A self-made investor who built 3 companies sold 2 and walked out of the third because she didn't like the tone in a meeting. The email was short, lunch next week. I'm curious about what you're building. Don't pitch, just talk. I stared at it for 10 minutes before replying. Name the place. We met at a quiet cafe in Midtown. No entourage, no cameras, just 2 women on opposite sides of a small marble table. She looked exactly like the kind of woman the world takes seriously. Silver haircut, like precision, voice that didn't rise or fall. When she smiled, it wasn't warmth. It was recognition. So she said, stirring her tea, tell me why you left a stable job and started something nobody asked for. I smiled. Because I got tired of waiting for permission. Her eyes flicked up. Good answer. She didn't take notes, didn't ask for projections or numbers. Instead, she asked questions like, how do you pick people? What happens when loyalty conflicts with profit? What's your limit? By the end of the hour, I was sweating not from fear but from honesty. I told her everything. About the betrayal, the silence, the rebuilding. About the champagne glass I never drank from. When I finished, she sat back studying me for a long time. You know what I like about you, she said finally. You don't sound like you're trying to win. You sound like you've already survived. She reached into her bag and pulled out a thin leather folder. Here, she said, read this. Decide if you're ready to scale. It was an investment proposal, $500,000 in seed funding. My name was already typed in. That night, I sat alone in the office, the city pulsing outside the window. My team had gone home hours ago. The hum of the air conditioner filled the silence. I placed the folder on my desk and stared at it. The logo embossed on the front shimmered in the light lane capital. I should have felt euphoria. Instead, I felt stillness, the quiet before a storm I'd built myself. I reached for the champagne glass on the shelf. The same one from that night, the one I'd washed turned upside down and kept as a reminder. I turned it upright for the first time in a year. Then I poured half a glass. No toast, no witnesses, no applause, just me and the city. I lifted it slightly toward the skyline and whispered, Phase 3. The bubbles caught the light like 1,000 small promises. The deal closed in 2 weeks. Renee called it an evolution, Nora called it terrifying. I called it inevitable. With Victoria's funding came access, clients, partnerships, events. For the first time, my name started appearing in print. Monica Ellis, CEO, Ellis Collaborative. The title didn't thrill me, it steadied me. It meant I'd built something no one could take credit for. But recognition has a scent, sweet at first, then addictive. By the end of that month, I was being invited to panels, interviews, mentorship programs. I turned down most of them. Visibility was a tool, not a craving. One afternoon, Victoria visited the office. She walked slowly through the space, the glass walls, the soft lighting, the air that smelled like possibility. Feels intentional, she said. It is. She paused at the window where the city glowed below. Ever think about them, she asked. The people who broke you. I didn't hesitate. Only when I need perspective. She smiled faintly. You'll need that. Power's quiet until it's tested. Then she nodded toward my desk. Keep the glass. I followed her gaze. The champagne flute sat under the light, empty, dustless, perfect. Yes, I said. It reminds me not to drink too early. After she left, I stood at the window watching the city shift from gold to steel as evening took over. Cars streaked light across the streets. The office lights blinked like distant stars. I thought about Alicia, her voice, her perfume, her laughter echoing through conference rooms that no longer mattered. I thought about my husband still trying to post meaning into existence. I didn't feel anger anymore, just distance. I whispered to the window, I built something you can't even imagine. The reflection of the champagne glass shimmered beside my own, identical shapes, different meanings. That weekend my team gathered to celebrate. We rented a rooftop terrace, brought cheap food, good music, and a bottle of champagne someone insisted on opening. When the cork popped, everyone laughed. They poured glasses, passed them around, shouting over the wind. When they handed one to me, I hesitated. Nora grinned, come on, boss, just a sip. You earned it. I looked at the glass. The same sparkle, the same scent, and smiled. I'll drink when the noise stops, I said. They laughed, assuming it was a joke, but I meant it, because victory, I've learned, doesn't taste right when it's loud. It's best served cold, and in silence. When the party ended, I stayed behind for a moment. The city stretched endless beneath me, lights, glass, stories stacked on stories. I set my untouched glass on the railing and whispered, Phase 4 begins now. The bubbles shimmered under the moonlight, soft, deliberate, endless. It started with a headline, Just one line on a business blog that most people would have scrolled past. Senior VP steps down amid financial irregularities. I didn't need to read the rest. I knew that name anywhere. Alicia Alvarez. The photo attached was an old one from her promotion party. Same red lipstick, same champagne glass raised in triumph. Same man beside her, my husband smiling like he owned the room. Now the caption read, "Under review." I leaned back in my chair, the glow of the monitor painting the office in pale light. Nora was across the room, typing furiously, humming off-key. The air smelled like ink and focus, the scent of creation, not destruction. But somewhere deep down, a quiet satisfaction unfolded. Not a shout, a pulse. They were breaking. And I didn't have to lift a finger. By noon, the story spread. Anonymous sources, internal leaks. Rumors that bonuses had been redirected, that numbers didn't add up. Nothing fatal yet, but enough to draw blood. I opened LinkedIn and searched her profile. It was still there, polished, confident, full of buzzwords. Leadership with integrity. The irony could have cut glass. I scrolled once, then closed it. The past didn't deserve my attention. But I let myself enjoy the symmetry. Because a year ago I had been the one whispered about in hallways, pitied in bathrooms, ignored in meetings. Now their silence was my echo. A few days later I received an email from an old client, one who'd left the company after Alicia took over. "Hi Monica, heard about the news. Glad to see you landed on your feet. Maybe we should talk about re-establishing business." Re-establishing. That's how the world describes poetic justice when it's too polite to say revenge. I replied, "My team will schedule a call." And then just for myself I added, "Happy to rebuild what was broken." By midweek the financial reports were public, investors were pulling back. My husband's title was nowhere to be found. That night he called. The first time in months. When I saw his name flash on my phone, I almost laughed. I let it ring twice before answering. "Monica," he said. His voice carried that mix of shame and nostalgia men use when they realize the world doesn't orbit them anymore. "I heard about your company. Congratulations." "Thank you. Things have been rough here." I read. He paused. "You did." "Yes." The silence stretched. Finally he said, "I missed the way you used to look at me." I almost smiled. "You mean when I looked up to you?" He swallowed. "That's not fair." "No," I said softly, "but it's accurate." He started to speak again, but I ended the call before he could find a way to make it about redemption. Later that night, I sat by the window of my office. The skyline shimmered like broken glass, fragments of ambition reflecting every direction. In the window's reflection, I saw myself holding the same champagne flute from months ago. This time it wasn't trembling. It wasn't empty either, just half-filled, steady, deliberate. I raised it slightly toward the city and whispered, "To the ones who taught me silence." The next morning, a notification popped up: corporate acquisition opportunity pending review. The name of the target company made my breath catch for just a moment. Their company. Of course it wasn't poetic. It was business. They were losing clients, losing trust, losing time. And my firm, clean, efficient, profitable, had quietly positioned itself as a natural successor. Victoria called within the hour. Her voice carried that low thrill of opportunity. "You know what this means, right?" she asked. "I do. You could walk in and own the ashes." "I built from ashes once," I said. "This time I want structure." She laughed, a deep, approving sound. "You're colder than I was. Colder is safer." 2 weeks later, I attended a networking event. Same industry, same faces, different gravity. I wore black silk, the color of power that doesn't ask for light. Conversations paused when I entered, not because of scandal, but because of silence, the good kind. The kind that means you've been seen. Across the room I spotted him. My husband. He was standing by the bar, older, somehow smaller. His tie was crooked. Alicia wasn't with him. He saw me and froze. There was no confrontation, no speech, no apology. Just that look, the moment a man realizes the woman he underestimated became the story he can't explain. He raised his glass awkwardly, a half-hearted gesture. I didn't return it. I turned away, greeting another investor with a handshake that meant relevance. The sound of his glass hitting the counter was small but sharp, like a truth breaking. That night, back at the office, my team worked late finalizing projections. The acquisition paperwork glowed on my screen. Each line item, each number, each clause a quiet undoing of everything they'd built on lies. I signed the preliminary intent form, date stamped and clean. Outside, the rain began soft against the window, like applause you don't need to hear. I leaned back and whispered to the city, "I don't want revenge. I want inheritance." The reflection in the glass caught my smile, not pride, not cruelty, just understanding. Sometimes victory isn't loud, sometimes it's simply surviving long enough to be the one who writes the final report. The envelope arrived on a Thursday afternoon, thick paper gold trim, the kind of stationery designed to feel expensive enough to matter. The return address read, "The Annual Corporate Excellence Gala." I smiled. I didn't need to read the fine print to know who would be there. Same crowd, same champagne, same ghosts. It wasn't nostalgia that made my pulse rise, it was geometry. The circle closing. Inside a single card read, "You are cordially invited to join the industry's leading innovators and sponsors in celebration of progress and partnership." At the bottom, in bold, was the name of the host, Alicia Alvarez, Chair Sponsorship Committee. The ink shimmered under the light like a challenge. Below that, another line caught my eye, Major Sponsor, Ellis Collaborative. I laughed out loud. The night of the gala, New York glittered like it had been waiting for the scene. My driver pulled up to the glass-fronted hotel, the kind of place where everything smells faintly of money and nerves. The red carpet wasn't for me, not officially, but the photographers still turned when I stepped out. Black silk dress, minimal jewelry, hair pulled back. The look wasn't meant to impress. It was meant to declare I am not here to compete. Inside, the ballroom buzzed with laughter, light, and music that pretended not to be background noise. I accepted a flute of champagne from a passing tray, held it lightly, and didn't drink. The lights reflected off the glass in my hand, tiny constellations of restraint. I walked through the crowd, catching fragments of conversations, markets, mergers, rumors. Then I heard her voice. Alicia. Sharp, familiar, almost brittle now. She stood near the stage, smiling too hard, her hair pinned tight. The kind of smile you wear when you're running out of air. My husband was beside her, older, heavier, his suit slightly too tight. They both froze when they saw me. She recovered first. "Monica," she said, stepping forward. "It's been ages." Her voice was sugar over shards. "It has," I replied. She gestured toward my name tag, the one printed in bold letters. Monica Ellis, Ellis Collaborative presenting sponsor. "You're sponsoring?" she asked. I smiled. "Technically, I'm hosting the sustainability panel. Thought I'd give back." Something flickered behind her eyes, panic disguised as politeness. I didn't realize. "Of course you didn't." Her hand twitched around her glass. My husband cleared his throat. "You look good." I tilted my head. "You look like a man still explaining things." He opened his mouth, then shut it again. Silence. It tasted better than champagne. The MC's voice boomed through the speakers. "Please welcome our newest industry investor whose company has redefined ethical leadership, Monica Ellis of Ellis Collaborative." Applause. Louder this time. Real. The spotlight caught me as I stepped onto the stage. The microphone hummed a low vibration that felt like memory and reclamation in one. "Good evening," I began. The words came easy. When I started my company, people told me silence meant weakness, that speaking softly meant being unheard. But I've learned that silence has volume if you build with it long enough. A ripple moved through the room. Curiosity, respect, maybe even recognition. In the corner, Alicia's smile cracked just slightly. My husband stared at the tablecloth. I continued, voice steady. "This award celebrates progress, but progress isn't noise. It's quiet persistence, the kind that doesn't need to humiliate or prove. It just replaces what failed." Applause again. Real this time. And I realized something simple and devastating. They'd never be able to clap without remembering me now. After the speech, the room melted back into music and conversation. People shook my hand, asked for photos, pitched collaborations. Alicia avoided me for a while, but eventually she couldn't resist. She approached, glass trembling slightly in her hand. "You've done well," she said. "You too," I said, eyes flicking to the half-empty champagne in her glass. "You're still drinking the same brand." She blinked. "What can I say? I'm loyal." "Loyalty," I said softly, "can be a habit or a curse. Sometimes both." For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then she smiled, small and thin. "Congratulations, Monica. Truly." I smiled back. "Thank you. You made this easier than you know." She left before I could see if her smile held. Later, standing by the balcony, I looked out at the city again. The skyline shimmered like it remembered me. In the reflection on the glass, I could see the room behind me, laughter, lights, gold. I lifted the champagne glass one more time. Across the room, my husband was watching. This time I didn't look away. I raised my glass toward him. He hesitated, unsure whether it was a peace offering or a verdict. It was neither. It was punctuation. I turned and set the glass down on the railing, still full, untouched. Then I walked away before the applause began again. That night, as the car pulled away from the hotel, the city blurred into gold streaks behind the window. I caught my reflection faintly in the glass, calm-centered, untouchable. A year ago, I'd stood behind the same kind of window, invisible. Now the glass reflected light back to me. Phase 5 complete. The next morning, the photos were everywhere. Ellis Collaborative steals the spotlight. Monica Ellis, the quiet storm of corporate leadership. The press had a taste for irony. They called it a meteoric rise, not knowing meteors burn hot before they illuminate. I spent the day in meetings, phone calls, interviews. Everyone wanted the story of how I did it. But the truth wasn't a headline. It was a process: humiliation, silence, then symmetry. Still, I smiled, for the cameras answered the polite questions, let them believe I'd simply worked hard and followed my dreams. People prefer fairy tales to autopsies. By evening, I was back at the same gala hall for the closing dinner, the one where Alicia and my ex-husband were still seated as guests, no longer hosts. The seating chart was its own quiet satire. My table front and center, theirs near the edge under softer light. Victoria sat beside me, looking every inch the woman who sees everything. She leaned close, voice low. You know they're both here. I do. Want to leave early? No, I said. I want to stay until the applause. She smiled. That's my girl. The MC took the stage. Tonight's final recognition goes to the partner whose acquisition proposal saved over 100 jobs in a collapsing firm, an example of integrity, innovation, and reinvention. My name followed. The words struck the air like a verdict. I rose slowly. The lights shifted golden, deliberate. Every step toward the stage echoed louder than the last. As I climbed the steps, I caught their faces in the audience. Alicia's lips pressed, the thin eyes glassy with the kind of admiration that stings. My ex-husband still trying to look proud, as though proximity could rewrite history. The applause swelled, layered with irony neither of them could escape. On stage, I accepted the award, a heavy mirrored sculpture shaped like flame. The surface reflected light, and faces bending everything into beautiful distortion. Thank you, I began, voice steady. This isn't just about rebuilding, it's about remembering who we are when we've been stripped of everything that defined us. The audience hushed, waiting. 2 years ago, I was in this same room. I watched someone else take a stage that should have been mine. I smiled. I clapped. And I learned that silence isn't submission, it's strategy. A soft murmur rippled through the crowd. I don't believe in revenge, I continued. I believe in structure, the kind that outlasts applause. The spotlight burned hotter. Somewhere near the back, a champagne flute shattered, a tiny, perfect sound of breakage. It could have been an accident. It could have been memory echoing itself. I paused just long enough to let the sound settle into silence. Then I smiled and said, to everyone who taught me resilience, thank you for your lack of faith. You were my best motivators. Laughter, applause, relief. The crowd thought it was charm. Alicia knew better. When the ceremony ended, I descended the stage to a rush of congratulations, handshakes, compliments. I moved through it all with surgical grace. Each well done sounded like a confession. Each, you deserve it, like a surrender. I found Alicia near the exit. She looked smaller in person now, shoulders drawn, glass empty. Beautiful speech, she said softly. Thank you. You've changed. I had to. Her gaze flicked toward the stage. You always had the talent. I guess you just needed motivation. Maybe, I said, leaning in close enough that she could smell the truth. Or maybe I just needed you to underestimate me. She flinched. It was almost imperceptible, but I saw it the exact second she realized she had trained the woman who replaced her. I touched her arm lightly, almost kindly. You'll find something new, Alicia. Failure looks good on people who can afford mirrors. Then I walked away. My ex-husband followed me into the hall, his voice low, pleading. Monica, please. Just a minute. I stopped, turned. He looked tired, edges dulled. I didn't mean for it to end this way. I know. I thought she could help us. It was never about, don't, I said quietly. You had a choice. You made it. And so did I. He swallowed. Do you still hate me? I shook my head. Hate requires energy. You're background noise now. His mouth opened, then closed. He stepped back as if realizing even proximity was permission I no longer granted. Outside, the night was crisp air carrying the faint chill of approaching winter. I stood beneath the marquee lights, award in one hand, phone in the other. Renee texted first. They'll talk about that speech for years. Victoria followed, poetic, ruthless, perfect. I smiled. It wasn't ruthlessness. It was return on investment. Across the street, through the glass doors, I saw Alicia and my ex-husband arguing in low tones. He gestured toward me once helplessly. She looked away. I turned toward my car, the city lights reflecting across the awards' mirrored surface. For a moment my reflection split, one face gleaming gold, one shadowed silver. The same woman, two versions, collapse in control. I whispered to the reflection, phase 6 complete. Inside the car I placed the award beside me, its mirrored edges catching the blur of the city as we pulled away. In the reflection of the window I caught my own eyes, steady, certain. The same woman who once clapped through her own humiliation now owned the applause, and the best part, no one could ever take it back. The email arrived on a Sunday morning. No subject line, no greeting, just one sentence: I need to see you. It came from Alicia Alvarez. For a long time I didn't move. The city was just beginning to wake, the hum of traffic below, the sunlight sliding across my floorboards, my coffee cooling beside the window. There was something poetic about the timing. I stared at her words again, then typed back. Monday, 10 a.m. My office. Send. It felt surgical, not revenge, not emotion, just inevitability. At 9:58 a.m. the next day my assistant buzzed me. She's here. Send her in. Alicia walked in like a woman who'd practiced the motion 100 times and still wasn't ready for the real thing. Her suit was immaculate, but her eyes weren't. There's a specific kind of exhaustion that comes from realizing you've become a footnote in someone else's success story. Monica, she said softly, you look incredible. Thank you. Her gaze drifted around the room, the glass walls, the silver letters on the frosted door, the quiet hum of a company that didn't need to brag. You've done well, she murmured. I know. She smiled faintly, as if that was the permission she'd come for. Then her voice dropped. I need help. There it was, the inversion of everything she once believed. I motioned to the chair across from my desk. Sit. She did, posture perfect, voice steady but soft. My reputation is... She paused, choosing the word. Damaged. The board has made it clear they don't want me back. I'm consulting now, but it's not enough. She hesitated. I'm not asking for charity. I'm asking for opportunity. The word echoed in the room like an old song, rewritten in a minor key. I leaned back in my chair. You want a position here. I want to work, she said quickly, and I can help. I know things you don't. I can bring clients. I smiled, small and precise. Funny, you said the same thing when you took mine. Her shoulders flinched, the first visible crack. That was different. Of course it was, I said. Then you had leverage. Now you have nostalgia. She blinked hard, her jaw tightening. You don't have to humiliate me. I folded my hands. I'm not. I'm evaluating. For a moment, silence filled the room. It wasn't awkward. It was power. Then I stood, walked to the sideboard, and opened the cabinet where the champagne glasses gleamed under the soft light. I took 2 out, set them on the table between us. The sound of glass against wood made her look up, her voice faltered. I didn't think you drank. I don't. I opened the bottle anyway, the soft pop filling the room like punctuation, poured a little into both glasses. Then I slid one toward her. For old times, I said. She stared at it, hands trembling slightly. You're enjoying this? Not really, I said quietly. But I remember the night you toasted your promotion, how confident you looked. How certain. Her eyes flicked to mine, brimming with something between shame and defiance. You think this fixes it? No, I said. Nothing fixes it. But it clarifies things. She didn't touch the glass. I lifted mine slightly, not to drink but to mirror the motion she once made so easily. To partnerships, I said. The same words she'd said years ago. Now stripped of their irony. Her breath caught. You think I deserve this? No, I said. I think you earned it. She blinked, confused. Earned every mistake, every miscalculation, every time you thought I wouldn't recover. That's what built this place. You were the lesson. I just built the curriculum. For a second I thought she might cry, but Alicia was too proud to unravel in front of me. She stood, smoothed her jacket and said, You're colder than I remember. I smiled faintly. No, just more precise. At the door she turned back once more. Do you ever regret it, leaving, winning this way? I met her gaze. Winning isn't a way, it's a consequence. She opened her mouth, then closed it again. And for the first time Alicia Alvarez had nothing left to say. She left without touching the glass. When the door shut, the office was quiet again. The untouched champagne shimmered faintly under the morning light. I stared at it for a moment, then picked up both glasses and carried them to the window. The city looked the same as always, unforgiving, alive, mine. I poured her glass into mine until it was full. Then I set it on the sill untouched and whispered, You never learned to stop drinking from the wrong glass. The bubbles rose once, then stilled. A metaphor complete, Renee called that afternoon. Heard she stopped by, she said. She did. Closure, clarity. Renee chuckled. That's colder than champagne. It lasts longer too. When I hung up, I opened my notebook to the last page, a blank space I'd left untouched for a reason. I wrote one sentence, slow and deliberate: the lesson is finished. Then I closed the cover, set it beside the empty glass, and turned off the light. The city glowed back at me through the window, silver, endless, reflective. Phase 7 complete. It's strange the way victory sounds when there's no one left to hear it. No applause, no clinking glasses, no one pretending not to envy you, just the quiet hum of an empire running itself. A year after Alicia's visit, the office is twice as big, 3 floors now, 80 employees. Renee calls it the Ellis effect, building something unbreakable out of the things people tried to shatter you with. I don't attend every meeting anymore. I don't need to. The systems work. The people understand the rhythm. Silence still drives everything. No unnecessary noise, no hollow pep talks, no performative chaos. Sometimes I stand in the corridor between glass walls and just listen. The muffled sound of fingers typing, of quiet conversations about deliverables and projections. To anyone else, it's an office. To me, it's music composed from stillness, built from absence. The industry finally stopped calling me the comeback story. Now they just call me formidable. A magazine asked for a feature last month. From betrayal to billion-dollar vision. I declined. Stories like mine don't belong in headlines. They belong in the silence between the lines of someone else's ambition. I keep the same champagne glass on my desk. It's never moved. It catches the light every afternoon the same way it did the night I was humiliated. Except now the light bends toward me. Some nights when the building is empty, I sit across from it, 2 survivors side by side. Yesterday I got another email, this one from him. I've been offered a position at a smaller firm. I wanted to thank you for everything, and to say I'm happy for you. Happy for me. The words sounded like foreign currency, something once valuable, now obsolete. I didn't reply. Not because I'm angry. Because the conversation ended years ago. Forgiveness isn't always kindness. Sometimes it's administrative, closing the file, stamping it complete, and moving on. Alicia never emailed again. I heard through the grapevine that she moved to the West Coast, started a small agency, tried to rebrand herself as an advocate for women in leadership. Ironic, but not undeserved. She learned the lesson, even if too late. This morning, the board met to finalize a merger that would triple our valuation. When Victoria congratulated me, I told her, it feels less like success and more like symmetry. She smiled in that knowing way only women who've built themselves understand. Symmetry is the truest luxury, she said. She's right. Because there's no sweeter symmetry than standing at the top of what once buried you. After everyone left, I stayed in my office alone. The sun poured through the glass like molten gold, painting the walls in color. The city outside stretched infinite towers of light and shadow. I pressed my palm against the window. It was cold but not unkind. In the reflection, I saw both worlds at once. The one behind me, order, structure, survival. And the one outside, endless, unpredictable waiting. My reflection didn't flinch. I didn't look away because this was the full circle. The woman who once stood invisible behind glass now owned the view. For a long time I thought revenge would taste sweet, but it doesn't. It tastes like quiet air after a storm. Clean, thin, necessary. I don't crave applause anymore. Applause is loud and loud things fade, but silence lasts. It's the sound of understanding that you've already won. At dusk I poured one final drink, water, not champagne. The glass was the same, though it always would be. I lifted it toward the city. The lights blinked back like the universe acknowledging the gesture. To the empire, I said softly. Not to mine. To the one built inside me, invisible, indestructible, alive. I took a sip, cold, clear, steady. Then I turned off the office lights and left the window glowing behind me, a single rectangle of gold in a skyline of silver. The empire didn't need noise, it had me.